The sleek obsidian spacecraft cut through the inky void of space, its stealth systems rendering it invisible to all but the most advanced detection systems. Inside the cockpit, Zira sat motionless, her iridescent scales reflecting the soft glow of the control panel. Her 4 eyes, each a different shade of violet, focused intently on the holographic display before her. Earth. The blue marble grew larger in her view, a world teeming with life, and more importantly, her target. Zira allowed herself a moment of pride. As the top assassin of the Drachnid Empire, she had been handpicked for this crucial mission. Her success would tip the scales in the silent war between her species and humanity, a conflict humans remained blissfully unaware of. A ping from her communication device interrupted her thoughts. Supreme Commander Vexlor's face materialized on the screen, his expression stern and unyielding. "Assassin Zira," he growled, "you approach your destination. Reconfirm your mission parameters." Zira straightened, her voice cool and professional. Mission objective: eliminate Dr. Ilara Chen, lead scientist of Project Aegis. Method: covered. Time frame: 3 Earth months. Penalty for failure: exile. Vexlor nodded, his razor-sharp teeth glinting. Correct. Remember, Zira, Dr. Chen's breakthrough in quantum shielding technology poses a significant threat to our invasion plans. Her elimination must appear accidental. We cannot risk exposing our presence to the humans. Yet. Understood, Supreme Commander. I will not fail. As the communication ended, Zira reviewed the dossier on her target. Dr. Ilara Chen, 32 Earth years old, a prodigy in the field of quantum physics. Her recent work on Project Aegis had drawn the attention of the Drachnid High Command. If successful, the project would render Earth's defenses impenetrable to Drachnid weapons. Zira's ship entered Earth's atmosphere, its advanced heat shields easily handling the friction. As she neared her landing coordinates, she activated her biomorphic implant. Her scales shimmered and receded, replaced by smooth human skin. Her extra eyes merged into 2, and her sharp claws retracted into fingernails. Within moments, a human woman with East Asian features stared back at her from the reflective surface of the console. The ship touched down silently in a remote forest outside of Boston, cloaking itself upon landing. Zira gathered her equipment, a collection of seemingly ordinary items, each concealing a deadly purpose. She had extensively studied human behavior and customs, but now she would put her training to the ultimate test. As dawn broke over the horizon, Zira emerged from the forest, now dressed in casual Earth attire. She carried a backpack containing her false credentials and background information. For the next 3 months, she would be Zhou Zhang, a brilliant exchange student from China, eager to learn from the renowned Dr. Chen. Zira made her way to the bustling campus of MIT, where Dr. Chen conducted her research. The sheer number of humans milling about caught her off guard. Their voices, scents, and movements overwhelmed her enhanced senses. For a moment, doubt crept into her mind. Could she really blend in with these creatures? She steeled herself, remembering her years of training. Failure was not an option. The fate of her species hung in the balance. Navigating the labyrinthine corridors of the science building, Zira finally arrived at Dr. Chen's office. She took a deep breath, schooling her features into an expression of eager anticipation. She knocked on the door. "Come in," a voice called from inside. Zira entered, her eyes immediately locking onto the woman seated behind the desk. Dr. Ilara Chen looked up, pushing her glasses back up her nose. She was younger than Zira had expected, with an air of intense focus about her. "Dr. Chen," Zira said, injecting a hint of nervousness into her voice. "I'm Zhou Zhang, the new exchange student. I'm so honored to meet you." Dr. Chen's face broke into a warm smile, catching Zira off guard. "Ah, Zhou, welcome to MIT. I've been looking forward to meeting you. Your work on quantum entanglement is impressive." Zira felt a flutter of something in her chest. pride at her cover story's effectiveness, or something else. She pushed the thought aside, focusing on the mission. Thank you, Dr. Chen. I'm excited to learn from you and contribute to Project Aegis. Dr. Chen's eyes lit up at the mention of her project. Well, you've certainly come at an exciting time. We're on the verge of a breakthrough that could change everything. But first, let me show you around the lab and introduce you to the team. As they left the office, Zira's mind raced. She had successfully infiltrated Dr. Chen's inner circle. Now she needed to gain her trust, learn the secrets of Project Aegis, and then eliminate the brilliant scientist before she could complete her work. Simple, straightforward, just like any other mission. So why did Zira feel a twinge of hesitation? Over the next few weeks, Zira immersed herself in her role as Zoe. She worked alongside Dr. Chen and her team, genuinely impressed by the ingenuity and dedication of these humans. Their project, she learned, wasn't just about defense. The quantum shielding technology had potential applications in clean energy, space exploration, and even medicine. Zira found herself staying late in the lab, engrossed in discussions with Dr. Chen. The human's passion for her work was infectious, her brilliant mind constantly churning out new ideas. More than once, Zira caught herself admiring the way Ilara's eyes sparkled when she talked about her research, or how her brow furrowed adorably when she encountered a problem. One evening, as they pored over some particularly complex equations, Ilara looked up at Zira with a grin. "You know, Zoe, I'm really glad you joined our team. Your insights have been invaluable." Zira felt a warmth spread through her chest, a feeling she couldn't quite identify. "Thank you, Dr. Chen. I'm learning so much from you." Ilara laughed, a sound that Zira found strangely melodious. "Please, call me Ilara. I think we've moved past formalities, don't you?" As Zira nodded, a sudden realization hit her like a plasma bolt. She was enjoying her time here. She looked forward to these late nights in the lab, to the intellectual challenges, to Ilara's company. For the first time in her life, she felt a connection to someone else, and that someone was her target. Back in her small apartment, Zira paced restlessly. Her mission parameters echoed in her head. Eliminate Dr. Ilara Chen. But how could she do that now? How could she snuff out the brilliant light that was Ilara? Zira's communication device beeped, startling her. Supreme Commander Vexler's face appeared, his expression grim. "Assassin Zira, report on your progress." Zira straightened, her training kicking in. "Infiltration successful. Supreme Commander, I've gained the target's trust and accessed Project Aegis. I'm gathering final intelligence before proceeding with elimination." Vexler's eyes narrowed. "You've had ample time, Assassin." The High Command grows impatient. Complete your mission within the week, or face the consequences. As the communication ended, Zira sank onto her bed, her mind in turmoil. She had a choice to make, and for the first time in her life, she wasn't sure what to do. The fate of two worlds now rested in her hands, and the clock was ticking. Zira stared at the ceiling of her small apartment, sleep eluding her. Vexler's ultimatum echoed in her mind, a constant reminder of her duty. Yet every time she closed her eyes, she saw Ilara's warm smile, heard her passionate explanations of quantum theory. The next morning, Zira arrived at the lab earlier than usual. She found Ilara already there, hunched over a complex array of equipment, her hair disheveled and dark circles under her eyes. "Ilara," Zira called softly. "Have you been here all night?" Ilara looked up, blinking owlishly. "Zoe, yes, I think I have. I had a breakthrough last night, and I couldn't stop working." Zira felt a mixture of admiration and concern. "That's amazing, but you need rest. What did you discover?" Ilara's eyes lit up with excitement. "I think I'd found a way to stabilize the quantum field at a macro level. If this works, we could create a shield large enough to protect entire cities." As Ilara launched into a detailed explanation, Zira listened intently, her own scientific curiosity piqued. She found herself offering suggestions, pointing out potential issues, and working alongside Ilara to refine the theory. Hours passed unnoticed. It was only when Ilara's stomach growled loudly that they realized they'd worked through lunch. Ilara laughed, a sound that sent a warm flutter through Zira's chest. "I guess we got a bit carried away. Want to grab some food?" Zira hesitated. This wasn't part of her mission, but the thought of spending more time with Ilara was irresistible. "I'd love to." They ended up at a small cafe near campus, sharing a table laden with sandwiches and coffee. As they ate, their conversation drifted from work to more personal topics. "So Zoe," Ilara said, stirring her coffee, "what made you want to study quantum physics?" Zira paused, carefully considering her response. Her cover story was well rehearsed, but suddenly, she felt an urge to share something real. "I've always been fascinated by the idea that there's more to the universe than what we can see, that there are forces at work beyond our understanding." Ilara nodded enthusiastically. "Exactly. That's what drew me to it too. The idea that we're just scratching the surface of what's possible." She trailed off, her expression turning wistful. "Sometimes I wonder if we're alone out there, if there are other civilizations looking up at the stars, asking the same questions we are." Zira felt a jolt of guilt. If only Ilara knew how right she was. "I'm sure there are," she said softly. "The universe is too vast for us to be alone." As they walked back to the lab, Ilara suddenly stopped, turning to face Zira. "I'm really glad you're here, Zoe. It's been a long time since I've had someone I could talk to like this, someone who really understands." Zira's heart raced. She opened her mouth to respond, but no words came out. Instead, she found herself leaning forward, drawn by an irresistible force. Their lips met in a soft, tentative kiss. For a moment, the world fell away. Zira forgot about her mission, about the Drachnid Empire, about the impending invasion. All that existed was this moment, this connection. When they parted, both women were breathless. Ilara's cheeks were flushed, her eyes wide with surprise and something more. I'm sorry," Zira stammered, her usual composure shattered. "I shouldn't have." Ilara silenced her with another quick kiss. "Don't apologize. I've wanted to do that for weeks." As they walked back to the lab, hand in hand, Zira's mind was in turmoil. She had come to Earth as an assassin, tasked with eliminating this brilliant, beautiful woman. Now she was falling in love with her target. That night, as Zira prepared her regular report for Vexlor, her hands shook. For the first time in her life, she lied to her superiors. She reported that the project was facing setbacks, that she needed more time. As she sent the message, Zira knew she had crossed a line. There was no going back now. She had chosen her side, and it wasn't with the Drachnid Empire. But as she lay in bed, thoughts of Ilara filling her mind, Zira couldn't bring herself to regret her decision. Whatever consequences she might face, this feeling, this love, was worth it. Little did she know, her deception had not gone unnoticed. In the depths of space, Supreme Commander Vexlor received her report with growing suspicion. The wheels of fate had been set in motion, and the true test of Zira's newfound loyalty was yet to come. As days turned into weeks, Zira found herself increasingly torn between her growing feelings for Ilara and the looming threat of her mission. Each day brought new breakthroughs in the lab, punctuated by stolen moments of tenderness with Ilara. Yet, the weight of her deception hung heavy on Zira's conscience. One evening, as they worked late in the lab, Ilara noticed Zira's distraction. "Zoe, is everything okay? You seem distant." Zira forced a smile. "I'm fine, just tired. This project is intense." Ilara wasn't convinced. She reached out, gently cupping Zira's face. "You know you can tell me anything, right?" For a moment, Zira was tempted to confess everything. But fear held her back. Fear of losing Ilara. Fear of the consequences. Instead, she leaned in for a kiss, hoping to distract both Ilara and herself. Later that night, Zira's communicator chirped. Her blood ran cold as Supreme Commander Vexlor's face appeared on the screen. "Assassin Zira," he growled, "your recent reports have been unsatisfactory. We're sending an agent to assess the situation. Expect contact within 48 Earth hours." The transmission cut off before Zira could respond. Panic gripped her. An assessment could only mean one thing. The Drachnids were suspicious of her loyalty. The next day, Zira arrived at the lab early, her mind racing with possible solutions. She was so preoccupied that she didn't notice Ilara's concerned looks. "Zoe," Ilara said softly, placing a hand on Zira's arm. "Something's bothering you. Please, talk to me." Zira looked into Ilara's eyes, seeing genuine concern and love. In that moment, she made a decision. "Ilara, there's something I need to tell you, but not here. Can we go somewhere private?" Ilara nodded, her expression serious. They left the lab, finding a secluded spot in a nearby park. Zira took a deep breath, steeling herself for what was to come. "Ilara, I'm not who you think I am. My name isn't Zojong. It's Zira. And I'm not human." Ilara's eyes widened in disbelief. "What are you talking about?" Zira closed her eyes, concentrating. Her biomorphic implant deactivated, revealing her true Drachnid form. When she opened her eyes, she saw Ilara stumbling backward, shock and fear written across her face. "I was sent here to kill you," Zira said, her voice breaking. "To stop Project Aegis. But I couldn't do it. I fell in love with you, Ilara." Ilara's face cycled through a range of emotions: fear, betrayal, confusion. "Why?" she finally managed to ask. "Why tell me this now?" Zira explained about the incoming assessment, the danger they were both in. "I couldn't keep lying to you, and I need your help. If we don't act fast, both our worlds could be in danger." For a long moment, Ilara was silent. Then, to Zira's surprise, she reached out and took Zira's hand. "I don't understand everything that's happening," Ilara said, her voice shaky but determined. "But I know you. Whatever you look like, whatever your name is, I know your heart. And I trust you." Relief washed over Zira. She hadn't lost Ilara. There was still hope. "So," Ilara said, a hint of her usual determination returning to her voice, "what do we do now?" Zira squeezed Ilara's hand. "We prepare, and we fight back." As they hurried back to the lab to gather what they needed, neither of them noticed the shadowy figure watching from a distance. The Drachnid assessment had already begun. The next 24 hours were a whirlwind of activity. Zira and Ilara worked tirelessly, gathering data, equipment, and supplies. They converted Ilara's small basement into a makeshift lab, transferring as much of Project Aegis as they could. As they worked, Zira explained everything. The silent war between the Drachnids and humanity, the true purpose of her mission, and the impending invasion. Ilara listened, her scientific mind processing the implications. "So, the quantum shielding," Ilara mused, "it's not just theoretical. It could actually stop your people's weapons." Zira nodded. "That's why they sent me. Your work could change the balance of power. But Ilara, there's more at stake here than just Earth." She went on to explain the oppressive nature of the Drachnid Empire, how many within their own ranks chafed under the military regime. "If we can find a way to stop this invasion, it could lead to change on my world too." As dawn broke, they finally paused, exhausted but determined. Ilara reached out, tracing the patterns on Zira's scaled skin. "You know, you're beautiful like this too." Zira felt a warmth spread through her at Ilara's touch, but before she could respond, a loud crash came from upstairs. "They're here," Zira hissed, positioning herself protectively in front of Ilara. The basement door burst open, and 3 Drachnid soldiers stormed in, weapons raised. Behind them stood a familiar figure, Supreme Commander Vexlor himself. "Assassin Zira," Vexlor sneered. "I'm disappointed. I expected better from our top operative." Zira stood her ground. This invasion is wrong, Vexilor. The humans aren't our enemies. Vexilor's eyes narrowed. Treason, then. And for what? This human. He gestured dismissively at Ilara. Kill them both. As the soldiers raised their weapons, several things happened at once. Ilara slammed her hand down on a makeshift device they'd cobbled together. A shimmering field sprang up around them, deflecting the soldiers' shots. At the same moment, Zira launched herself at Vexilor, using her assassin's training to quickly disarm him. In the ensuing chaos, Ilara managed to activate the lab's emergency lockdown, trapping the Drachnid intruders inside with them. Vexilor, pinned beneath Zira, snarled, "You can't win, traitor. The invasion fleet is already on its way. Earth will fall, with or without your precious quantum shielding." But Ilara was smiling, a fierce, triumphant grin. "That's where you're wrong," she said, tapping at her computer. "While you were monologuing, I just broadcasted everything you said to every major government and news outlet on the planet. The element of surprise. It's gone." Vexilor's face contorted with rage, but Zira could see the fear in his eyes. Their plan was unraveling. As sirens began to wail in the distance, signaling the approach of human authorities, Zira looked at Ilara with a mixture of love and admiration. They had won this battle, but the war was far from over. The real challenge, uniting two worlds against a common threat, was just beginning. The next few weeks were a blur of activity. With the Drachnid threat exposed, Earth's government scrambled to prepare. Zira and Ilara found themselves at the center of a global effort to adapt the quantum shielding technology for planetary defense. Zira's knowledge of Drachnid weaponry and tactics proved invaluable. Working alongside Ilara and a team of the world's best scientists, they raced against time to create a defense system capable of repelling the incoming invasion fleet. As they worked, news came from the stars. Not all Drachnids supported the invasion. Inspired by Zira's defection, a resistance movement had formed within the Empire. They provided crucial intelligence, buying Earth precious time to prepare. Finally, the day arrived. The Drachnid fleet appeared in Earth's orbit, a swarm of sleek, deadly ships darkening the sky. As they began their approach, Ilara gave the signal. All around the globe, quantum shield generators hummed to life. A shimmering barrier enveloped the planet, just as the first Drachnid shots were fired. The deadly energy weapons dissipated harmlessly against the shield. From a command center deep beneath the Pentagon, Zira and Ilara watched the battle unfold. The shield was holding, but for how long? "We need to do more than just defend," Zira said, her tactical mind racing. "We need to show them they can't win." Ilara nodded, understanding immediately. They had prepared for this. With a series of commands, she activated the second phase of their plan. Quantum-enhanced communication beams lanced out from Earth, penetrating the Drachnid ship's defenses. They carried a message, not of surrender, but of unity. Broadcast in the Drachnid language, it called for an end to the conflict, for cooperation instead of conquest. On the Drachnid ships, confusion reigned. Many of the soldiers, fed propaganda about human aggression, were shocked to hear messages of peace. The resistance, seizing their moment, began to act. Ship by ship, the invasion fleet began to stand down. Those loyal to the old regime fought on, but they were increasingly outnumbered. As the battle turned, Zira felt a hand slip into hers. She looked at Ilara, seeing her own mix of hope and anxiety reflected back. "Whatever happens," Ilara said softly, "we face it together." Zira squeezed her hand, marveling at how this human had changed everything. "Together," she agreed. In the aftermath of the failed invasion, Earth found itself thrust onto the galactic stage. The quantum shielding technology, combined with the revelation of alien life, had changed everything. Zira and Ilara stood before the United Nations, now expanded to include representatives from the reformed Drachnid government and other alien races who had come forward in the wake of the conflict. Today, we stand at a crossroads. Ilara began, her voice carrying to all corners of the globe and beyond. We have seen the face of conflict, and we have chosen cooperation. The quantum shielding that protected us can now unite us. Zira stepped forward. My people, the Drachnids, have much to atone for. But we also have much to offer. Together, we can explore the stars, solve the mysteries of the universe, and build a future brighter than any of us could have imagined alone. As they spoke, projects were already underway. The quantum technology was being adapted for space travel, for healing, for solving the energy crisis. Ships were being built, not for war, but for exploration. Later, away from the cameras and diplomats, Zira and Ilara stood on the balcony of their new home, looking up at the stars. Did you ever imagine it would turn out like this? Ilara asked, leaning into Zira's embrace. Zira chuckled, running her fingers through Ilara's hair. Never. I came here to end a life. Instead, I found a reason to live. Ilara turned in her arms, looking up at her with a mischievous smile. So, Agent Zira, ready for our next mission? Zira raised an eyebrow. Oh? And what would that be, Dr. Chen? Ilara's eyes sparkled with excitement. There's a whole universe out there waiting to be explored, and I can't think of anyone I'd rather explore it with. As they sealed their agreement with a kiss, a shooting star blazed across the sky. Once, it might have been seen as an omen of invasion. Now it was a promise of adventures to come. The assassin sent to kill had instead fallen in love, and in doing so, had changed the fate of two worlds. As for what the future held, that was a story yet to be written, one that Zira and Ilara would write together among the stars.